The best stories begin with a villain who defines the hero's very purpose. Sometimes it's not even for a complex reason. Sometimes it's because the villain is extremely petty and wanted nothing more than to just screw with our hero. And while Rick and Morty mostly featured one-off antagonists, the show introduced two overarching villains who played crucial roles in advancing the story. One of them was Evil Morty, a character many believe to be connected to Rick C-137's backstory, but in reality, he was just an ordinary Morty who grew tired of his grandfather and wanted to break free from the shackles of destiny. However, there was one character whose actions set everything in motion. Without him, the show as we know wouldn't exist. A character born without remorse. A character who gave the protagonist his purpose and ultimately pushed him to become the very thing he feared. This is the full story of Rick Prime, the Symmetry of Suffering. If you're new around here, please consider subscribing. I wanted to thank you all for 100,000 subscribers. It means the world to me. I promise to not let you down and continue creating the best content I can. With that, let's get to the video. We begin in the first episode of season 3. After Rick turns himself in, we see him undergoing some brain therapy where the Gromphlomites can access his memories. They want to find the memory of Rick's where he first discovered portal travel. He was young, clean, and more than anything, a decent, curious man. He's having trouble creating teleportation when all of a sudden, another Rick shows up from a parallel dimension. He reveals to our Rick that he's about to create something much more powerful than teleportation, the infamous portal gun.
Imagine going anywhere, anytime with nobody able to stop you. Sounds lonely. Lonely? Dude, you have yourself. It's a non-stop party where all the guests are the only person we like.
He essentially offers our Rick the chance to become a god, but to his counterpart's shock, our Rick turns it down.
Pass. Excuse me? Bro, Ricks don't pass on this. Who do you think you are? A different kind of Rick, I guess. Well, we'll see how long that lasts.
Diane, Rick's wife, then walks in, where he tells her that perhaps he doesn't want to become a scientist. Seeing a version of himself that cares about nothing has made him reflect, and instead of working more on portal travel, he decides to go out for ice cream with his wife and daughter. Unfortunately, as they're about to leave, a bomb drops from a portal and his family dies. Shortly after this, Rick invents the portal gun. The funny thing is, our Rick tells the Gromphomite that what we just witnessed wasn't a real memory, and that he made it up, but 2 seasons later, we find out that it was in fact true. In the season 5 episode Rickmurai Jack, we learn that after losing his family, Rick invents interdimensional travel and devotes his entire life to tracking down the Rick responsible for their deaths. He travels across countless planets and dimensions, assassinating countless Ricks, yet he's never able to find the one he's looking for. In fact, in one scene, we see our Rick back in his homeworld, sitting where his wife and daughter died, while different versions of himself come in trying to kill him. Rick was no longer that same family man. He was transformed into a cold, ruthless, and practically unfeeling robot. Finally, after creating a truce with some Ricks and creating the Citadel, he comes to a different dimension, where his daughter is alive and grown up. Which brings us to season 6, Solar Ricks. This episode delivers a major reveal that answers one of the biggest unanswered questions in fans' minds. The dimension our Rick ended up in wasn't a coincidence, and it wasn't because he simply wanted to be in a universe where his daughter was still alive. He somehow discovered the original universe that the evil Rick, now known as Rick Prime, came from, and that was this dimension.
Wasn't the Rick here dead? That's why you pick places, right?
Well, you're Rick, yeah, not dead. More like, not around. When I met you, I was sorta hoping he might turn up one day.
I love this reveal because 1, it added more importance to our Morty, and 2, back when season 1 aired, there was a massive theory going on that evil Morty was our Rick's original Morty. This in fact wasn't true as we found out in season 5, but if you think about it, evil Rick, or Rick Prime being our Morty's original grandfather, is the evil Morty theory, but in reverse. That in itself is genius. Another reason why this reveal is so good is because it recontextualizes previous episodes. For example, Rick Potion number 9, the most important episode in the show. In that episode, Rick seemingly, accidentally, destroys the entire world, turning everyone into Cronenbergs and forcing him and Morty to abandon their universe and find a new one. But with the knowledge that this was originally Rick Prime's universe, it becomes clear that Rick shows no remorse because it was the universe of his nemesis. It's like he wanted to destroy it. Another episode it recontextualizes is season 3 episode 1. In that episode, we occasionally cut between Morty and Summer visiting the Cronenberg dimension and the flashback of our Rick meeting Rick Prime. At the time, these were just the A plot and the B plot of the episode, but now that we know that this dimension is Rick Prime's original universe, it feels like the writers were subtly planting these seeds all along, almost conditioning us without realizing it. That's why I believe this reveal was planned years in advance. Anyway, Rick tracks Rick Prime in the middle of nowhere in space, only to see that he's in some insane invisible death trap. He starts trolling our Rick, mocking him through a screen, while a naked, potentially unintentionally, cloned version of him dances in a tube. Rick Prime is essentially Jigsaw here, sending waves of robots after our Rick, setting up fake bomb countdowns, and to top it all off, communicating only through a pre-recorded message. Our Rick tries to go after him, not caring that it's an obvious trap, when Morty gets through to him.
I don't know him! You're my grandpa, Rick!
At the end of the episode, we get one of the most important lines.
You promise I'm not, bait? To make that Rick come back?
What? Morty, for you to be bait, the guy'd have to value something. He truly does not give a shit. He's the real deal.
For a long time, Rick C-137 was considered the Rickest Rick, not just by himself and the fans, but even by Evil Morty himself.
It's okay, he's free to go. He's the Rickest Rick.
But from the line that Rick says to Morty and what we've seen in the show, Rick does care about his family and saves them numerous times.
You're a rogue, Rick. Irrational, passionate. You love your grandkids. You came to rescue them.
Rick Prime is the Rickest Rick, the worst of them all, wielding godlike power, not just physically, but mentally, because he has no attachment to anyone but himself, as seen in the post-credit scene, when he returns to his own dimension. Prime Jerry offers him an alliance, but then tries to kill him. He fails, and Rick effortlessly kills him after revealing that he has some kind of immortality that makes him virtually unstoppable. In the latter half of season 7, we learn that our Rick has been secretly trying, and failing, to track down Rick Prime in the background. He then reveals that season 7 will focus entirely on the hunt, and it's going to be long and drawn out. But given that Dan Harmon has stated numerous times that he hates over-serialized drama, I was wondering whether they would stick to this, and the writers pulled a complete masterclass. In season 7, episode 5, Unmortricken, we see just how much of a sadist Rick Prime is. For one, he's got an infinite number of clones scattered across multiple universes, making it nearly impossible to find him. And even after locating seemingly the correct one, thanks to the help of Evil Morty, he manages to not only grab a hold of the three of them with this venom symbiote-like substance, he was able to grab a hold of their portals too. Absolute demon. This is when we get the biggest reveal in the show. See, Rick Prime didn't just kill our Rick's wife and daughter with that bomb. He erased his wife, Diane, from every conceivable universe, using the Omega device. Prime promises our main character and the other Ricks he's trapped that the last one standing will be able to see Diane again. An obvious lie, but because these Ricks are dumbasses and blinded by emotion, they start fighting each other. Our Rick and Morty team up with Evil Morty to win, only for Rick Prime to unleash a disturbing robot bearing the face of his wife, showcasing how depraved he really is. After Rick destroys the robot, the entire place erupts into flames, because Prime is nothing if not an absolute liar. Their portal guns don't even work, and the two had to combine them to escape, another demonstration of Rick Prime's intelligence. After arriving, Rick analyzes the symbiote substance and finally finds Prime, and he gives us another reveal.
Honestly, wife guy, I do miss when it was just us, the only two Ricks who actually invented portal travel.
The three try and jump his ass, and Prime showcases yet again why he's the Rickest Rick. He barely even looks at them while dodging their attacks, all the while he monologues about how he's gonna erase everyone from their family tree, starting with Slow Mobius.
Uncle Slow? Slow Mobius?
Yeah, this one hurts me too.
Prime then manages to take on Evil Morty and our Rick at the same time, with ease mind you. And then he pulls a Thanos and spawns a bunch of these Diane robots just to continue to fuck with our Rick. Even in his solo fight with Evil Morty, he is shown to adapt very quickly to his techniques. I also have to say, the choreography of this fight is incredible, one of the most underrated aspects of the show alongside its animation. Eventually, Prime is about to end the battle when Evil Morty outsmarts him by putting his eye patch on our Morty. Despite Rick Prime displaying time and time again that he thinks of every possible scenario, he's still a Rick, and therefore underestimates the potential of Morty. After Evil Morty takes him out, Prime offers to form an alliance with him, but Evil Morty is not interested at all. Instead, he takes out all of his clones and steals the Omega device's schematics before he brings in our Rick to finish him off. And what we see next is easily a top 5 moment in the entire show. Prime tells our Rick to go after Evil Morty because he could build the Omega device again and erase them from existence. Rick isn't even listening to him and immediately starts pummeling the shit out of him.
You're welcome, by the way. I made you. I showed you infinity. And what did you do with it? Hang out with my grandson? Raise echoes of my daughter?
Because I don't want him to leave again, you dumb asshole!
What's your life without me? Admit it, you would have been me. I just walked into your garage before you walked into mine.
Who do you think you are? A different kind of Rick, I guess. Well, we'll see how long that lasts.
But eventually, you did. You lived in my house!
And Prime dies laughing maniacally. Rick walks out with his nemesis' blood all over him, staying totally silent and feeling extremely hollow. We then witness a scene that is a direct parallel to Rick Potion number 9. While Morty in that episode was the one traumatized because he had to replace his dead self in a new reality, Rick acted like it was just any other day. In Unmortricken, however, Rick is depressed because his goal has finally ended. His purpose for existing, the hatred that defined his very existence, and the last connection he had to his dead wife all just went away. And at the time of me working on this video, this episode was the last appearance of Rick Prime. The true motivation and origin of Rick Prime always intrigued me. You see, we don't know anything about him other than the fact that he was the first Rick to create portal travel, and that he erased his wife across infinity. But let's just take a look back at his original dimension for a second. He clearly had some affection toward his wife Diane, because, you know, Beth, and we know he left her sometime after she was born, as proved by season 8 episode 6, which I'll touch more on later. While I'm happy with him just being the sadistic asshole that cares about no one but himself, a lot of people are wondering what his true history is. Why did he erase Diane from existence? And to that, I'm gonna give you what I think the writers would respond to that.
The answer is don't think about it.
But you know, it's fun to speculate. Unless they want to expand on his lore a bit, I think we have all the necessary details to piece together what his origin is and his true motivation. This is the theory I have. Rick Prime was probably once like our Rick, a simple family man with ambitious goals. And then he discovered interdimensional travel and traveled across many universes to see other versions of himself and his family. And that's when he realized that nothing matters. So he spiraled and got sucked into the endless void of nihilism. He left Diane and Beth, probably in pursuit of something greater, to give him purpose. Maybe he didn't find anything, and after returning back to his family, Diane wanted nothing to do with him and lashed out at him. In response, he traversed the multiverse to find our Rick, much like himself. He then offered him the formula for interdimensional travel, so that he could become the infinite Rick. And you can see from Prime's reaction,
Bro, Ricks don't pass on this. Who do you think you are?
perhaps seeing a Rick who was better than him, a Rick who stayed with his family and didn't obsess over becoming this unstoppable god, made him jealous. CA-137 Rick is everything Prime Rick wanted to be, someone who had meaning. So in response, he kills his family, not out of a personal vendetta against him, but to prove that no one is better than him, that all Ricks have a tipping point. And that one act caused our Rick to transform into another Rick Prime, a person who realized that everything is infinite and nothing matters. You could argue then that the reason Prime chose to erase Diane across infinity relates to this too, that if he can't have his wife, then no other Rick can. Just look at the little digs he tries to get in at our Rick while he's getting pummeled to death.
You lived in my house!
He's vengeful and angry. One could say maybe even a little guilty. Rick Prime did leave his family at one point, but until then, he was probably like any other Rick. Take the season 3 episode The ABCs of Beth. In this reality, Prime did create Fruity Land for his Beth, because as a kid, she was a straight up sociopath. You could take this as him caring for his Beth, but apparently every Rick did this. In the season 8 episode The Cure Rick's Case of Beth Jamin Button, we see just how much Prime's leaving affected Beth. What we get is one of the more heartwarming moments in the entire season, where our Rick tells them with his frail body that he's proud of them and that he never left his Beth, that she died. It's extremely tragic. And so, Rick Prime laughs as he dies because he knows he succeeded in his plan to prove that he is no worse than any other Rick out there, as long as they have the power to see infinity. And since our Rick is the only other Rick who created portal travel, he indirectly ruined every Rick's life, because our Rick is the one who created the Citadel of Ricks. This is just my theory based on all the information we have on him, but in truth, I just don't see the writers expanding on his backstory, because at the end of the day, he's dead. Does it even matter? When I think about Rick Prime's story, it reminds me a lot of Reverse Flash. Think about it. Rick Prime killed our Rick's wife and daughter, pushing him down a path of vengeance and destruction, until he transformed into someone unrecognizable, the Infinite Rick, the very thing he feared becoming. Essentially, Rick Prime represents what our Rick might have become if he had lost all emotional connection, and as several episodes show, he never did lose that. Eobard Thawne, or the Reverse Flash, on the other hand, killed Barry Allen's mother, setting him on a path of justice to become a hero. He shaped him emotionally, and without that tragedy, Barry Allen may have never become the Flash. Eobard Thawne represents what Barry would have become if he gave in to vengeance and obsession, and the most obvious similarity is that both Rick Prime and Eobard Thawne are twisted reflections of our protagonists, essentially the darkest and worst versions of themselves. Rick Prime is emotionally detached from everything and everyone, sadistically toying with his enemies by creating robots in the form of his dead wife, killing other family members, and having fun while doing it. But despite the show also reiterating to us time and time again that he is, in fact, the Rickest Rick. He is still a Rick, and was taken out by his grandson, the one thing that Rick has always underestimated. Perhaps he wasn't always a bad guy. Perhaps he was. Will we ever find out? Personally, I don't think so. But leave below your thoughts and theories on his origin story, because as always, it's fun to speculate. If you like characters like Rick Prime, you would also love my book, The Shattered Absolution. If you love stories that have very resentful and complex villains, you've got to check it out. There's a lot of deep and tragic lore that can make you cry, and a lot of mystery to speculate on. Please check it out down below. Rick Prime isn't just cruel, he's extremely petty, killing another Rick's family, not out of necessity, but to prove that no one could ever surpass him. And while he eventually dies at the hands of the Rick he traumatized, he won in the end. He left our Rick with emptiness, adrift in a world of infinite possibilities, yet forever shackled to a single moment of loss. All it left him with is the harsh truth, that the man who broke him was also the one who defined him. He gave him infinity to prove that no other Rick is better than him. Rick Prime birthed the Symmetry of Suffering. If you're new around here, please leave a like and subscribe. I want to thank all of you once again for 100,000 subscribers. And don't worry, I'm working on a huge 100k special for all of you. If you want early access to my videos, please check out my Patreon. I have a Discord server too that you can join by clicking the link down below. Have any other ideas you have? Please leave a comment. Check out my book too while you're down there. And I want to thank you all for watching.